Okay, so this is continuing book 1, lines 1 through 33. Last time we left off at line 7, from where come the Latin race, the Alban fathers, and the walls of High Rome. Then Virgil starts with the invocation to the Muse. So, Muse, recount for me the reasons by means of which harmed spirit, by means of which harmed divine spirit. Numen Numinis is the divine spirit of the god, and this is more specifically referring to Juno. So by means of what harmed spirit, or grieving what? The queen of the gods. Then you have to go all the way down to line 11 to impuleret. So Muse, tell me the reasons why the queen of the gods, this Deum is short for Deorum, why the queen of the gods compelled this man, this Wiram, this man to undergo tot casus, so many misfortunes, and why the queen of the gods forced this man to approach or undergo tot labores, so many labors or tasks. Also, this man is insignum pietate, which is outstanding with respect to piety. So a final translation of this line. Muse, recall for me the reasons by which harmed divine spirit, or grieving or vexed at what the queen of the gods forced this man distinguished in piety, to undergo so many misfortunes, to approach so many labors or tasks. So a little anaphora with a tot underlines how much Juno asked of Aeneas, forced him to go through so many things. It also gives you a clue that for some reason the queen of the gods is harmed somehow, or grieving or vexed at him for some reason. So this gives us a clue that Juno really has it in for Aeneas. And then finally, is there such anger in the minds of the gods? So the tantai irai, and of course there's a verb fail here, it just means how can the gods be so angry? I think there's a different translation in your book. Then we get into the actual narrative. There was an ancient city. The colonists of Tyre held it. Here's the shortened third person plural. There should be tenuerunt, but Virgil gives us tenuere because he needs the short vowel here. The colonists of Tyre held it, Carthage. And this is just in opposition to the Antiqua herbs. Longa contra is far opposite from Italy and the Tiberine shores. Most fearsome in the pursuits of war, and wealthy in riches. So there was an ancient city. The Tyrian colonists held it. You could even say settled it. Carthage, far opposite Italy and the Tiberine shores, or the mouth of the Tiber, wealthy in riches, and most fearsome in pursuits of war. So what that means, Tyrian colonists settled it, or Tyrian colonists held it. If we take a look at this map, over here is Tyre. So this is modern-day Lebanon. And so it was colonists from Tyre who sailed across the Mediterranean and settled in Carthage. So this was actually founded by Queen Dido. She was fleeing her home city of Tyre so settled by Carthage. And then the far opposite from Italy and the Tiberine mouths means just far off here from opposite Italy. So he's just giving you pretty much a geographic makeup of where the city is. Okay. Now, I'm not sure why I have this punctuation here, but you can take this quam as starting a whole relative clause describing this city, Carthage, this ancient city, which Juno is said to have cherished more, which Juno is said to have cherished alone, only, more than terris omnibus, than all other lands, even with Samos having been placed after. So that's a little ablative absolute, post habitas Samo, and it's saying that Juno cherished Carthage even more than a place that really cherished her, which was Samos. And Samos was a little island in the Aegean. Here's a little close-up of it. So here's the Aegean. Here's Turkey. This is actually where Troy is. And so Samos Island is just right here. This is just another place that is sacred to Juno. So even Carthage was more sacred to her than her favorite city, Samos. Here she kept her weapons. Here were her weapons. Here were her chariot. And this is referring to Samos, that she kept all of her cool Juno equipment there. So this is a heek. Here were her weapons. Here was her chariot. Okay, so we're back at Samos, line 17. So here were her arms, here was her chariot. Now going back to Carthage, the goddess tendit qua foet quet. So now the goddess looks after and cherishes Carthage. Esse gentibus hoc regnum, to be the kingdom for races, or for all races, if the fates allow. So Juno wants Carthage to be the ruler of the world, something which we're going to find out is not going to happen. So we're still with Juno, Progenium, Triano, Adieret. For she had heard that offspring, that from Trojan blood is being led. So in other words, she heard that from Trojan blood, offspring is being brought. The kind of offspring who would overturn Tyrian citadels. So progenium is feminine with this relative clause of characteristic as the antecedent, who would overturn Tyrian citadels. So she heard that somebody from Trojan blood was one day going to overthrow the citadel that was from Tyrian blood, in other words, Carthage. She also had heard, so another indirect statement, she also had heard that from here, meaning from the Trojan blood, that a people would come as king, as proud king, far and wide. Or you could say, because of this qua, you could say she heard that a people, when term esse fail, would come far and wide as king and proud in war. She heard that they would come excidio Libyae for the purpose of, dative purpose, for the downfall of Libya. So now Juno is really frightened that there's a group of people from Trojan blood who's going to come and overturn the Tyrian citadels and also to be the downfall of Libya. Thus spun the fates. And we know that there were three fates. One did the, they're over here. Those are the three goddesses. One of the fates did the spinning, Clotho. One did the cutting, Atropos. And one actually did the measuring. So those are the three fates. You don't necessarily need to know their names, but it's just kind of nice to know Clotho, Atropos, and Lachesis. Thus spun the fates. You can take this Vora as an infinitive that you can translate as a finite, and also parkas as accusative, or you can take it as an indirect statement governed by adiera as well. So she had heard that, thus the fates spun. So fearing this, and that means referring to all the overthrowing of her new pet city, Carthage, fearing this, Juno, and she's known by this epithet Saturnia, which means daughter of Saturn. You can call her Saturnia or Juno. So fearing this, Juno, mindful of ancient war, the war which first Gesserat ad Troiam, which she had waged at Troy on behalf of her dear Argos, and Argos is a Greek city. This is unusual because at Troy you would expect there not to be the preposition odd. This should just be a locative, place where. In this ancient war, which she had waged at Troy on behalf of her dear or precious Argos, is referring to the Trojan War. So this is just a relative clause. We're back to the main subject and verb. So Juno, mindful of ancient war, had not yet, Nictum. Actually, the Dolores is the Chasai in Dolores is a new subject. The causes of her anger and the grief in her harsh mind had not yet left. Had not yet left her harsh mind, you could say. So the causes of the anger and her grief had not yet left her mind. And so now we're just going to tell you what those reasons are that why Juno's so angry. So, Monet Judicium. The judgment of Paris remains placed in or placed far back in her deep mind. I would say the judgment of Paris remains deep in her mind. And this is the judgment of Paris, where there's Juno. You can tell Juno, should be able to tell Juno by the peacock, although there's no peacock, but this is her. This one is Venus, to whom Paris is awarding the apple, and you can tell this is Venus because of Cupid right next to her. And this is Minerva, goddess of war. And back here is Hermes looking on. So the judgment of Paris lays back deep in her mind, and the injury to her slighted beauty lays deep in her mind. So the injury to her slighted beauty means that also Paris didn't give her the golden apple, but gave it to Venus. And the hated race also lays deep in her mind. And the hated race is Troy. And so one of the first reasons why she hates the Trojans is because of Paris and how Paris harmed her beauty, hated race, and the honor of Ganymede, of having been snatched up Ganymede. And this is in reference to Jupiter. One of his many conquests was the young boy Ganymede, who was swept up by Jupiter in the guise of an owl. I mean, an owl, in the guise of a hawk. No, an eagle. Here you can see an older-looking Ganymede being swept up by this eagle. He became the god's cupbearer, and that's this. Here we can actually see Ganymede as a baby being swept up by the eagle Jupiter, and Ganymede is so frightened that he's even peeing a little bit. Here's Ganymede and Jupiter getting a little friendly. So the love that Jupiter had towards Ganymede, who also happened to be Trojan, is yet another reason why Juno was mad at the Trojans. So she had a lot of grudges against them. So, furthermore, besides these, she having been burned, or just she burning, if you want to translate that present active participle, perfect passive participle as present active. So over and above these, there's some noise going on. She archebot. This is a verb that takes the ablative of separation. You keep somebody from some place in the ablative. So here, because of these things, she burning because of these things, she archebot. She kept the Trojans, Iactatos Ikore Toto, having been buffeted on the whole sea. She kept the Trojans, those remainders of the Greeks and of harsh Achilles. And what that means is the people who survived the Greeks and the Achilles, so the ones who even survived, she kept them far off from Latium. So somehow we know that the Trojans are supposed to get to Latium, and Juno knows they're supposed to get to Latium, so she keeps them far off from Latium. Here's the ablative of separation. They were wandering for many years, having been compelled by fate around all of the seas. There's really nice word order with this arabont and then around all the seas. It shows that they're sort of wandering all over the place. Oh, such was it a great burden to establish the Roman race. So tante molis erat Romanum condor gentem is a really famous line, and it's a really nice way to end this main invocation of the Muse.